It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Jason, Andy, and Alex are all here. Coming up, of course, we're going to break down Apple's quarterly results. It was a surprisingly good quarter. Tim Cook explains why. We'll share that with you. We'll also talk about a man who is controlling his iPad with only his mind. And David Pogue's new book covers Apple, the first 50 years. All that and more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and Jason Snell. Episode 984, recorded Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. Wessonality. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we get together and talk about the latest news from Apple. It's going to be a colorful one this week. Alex Lindsay is here from officehours.global.
Hello.
Hello, Alex. Andy Anako, good to see you at the library.
Good to be here. I'm in a good mood because when I was signing in to use the conference room, someone else was signing out at the same time, and I made a joking reference to those Warner Brothers cartoons where the wolf and the sheepdog are punching in at the sheep meadow, and I thought that I was halfway through it. I thought that I bet they don't get this, and they totally got the reference, and that has made my entire day. Morning, Sam. Morning, Ralph. I'm serious. I'm so happy. Check it out. It's one of the funniest series that Chuck Jones ever did.
And, of course, the man bringing the colors this week from sixcolors.com, Mr. Jason Snell.
Morning, Leo.
Morning, Jason. Did you, who transcribed the analyst call last week?
Audio Hijack transcribed it. So I open Audio Hijack, which is a nice, just probably recommended here 90 times, audio utility for the Mac. And it has a feature that they added a year or two ago that is a transcription block that is using Whisper from OpenAI, the open source transcription engine, and it outputs everything it captures to a text file. So I leave that text file open, and then I have another text file open that starts blank. And what happens is another Audio Hijack feature is you can, it's like a little DVR for whatever you're capturing. So you can pause it and back it up as you're listening. And so my process is basically I start the call with the first block of the transcript, and I just keep copying what the transcript is giving me out, pasting it in, and then playing. And I just watch as I'm listening to the call. I just watch what the transcript is, and I fix it when I need to. Nice. And so it's not perfect, and that's why you do need a human involved who understands what all of these concepts are of financial reports. Yeah. But I can get it. I used to have to type it myself, right? Like 10 years ago, I typed it myself, and now all I have to do is correct when you get to the analyst questions, and they mumble. And the Whisper's like, I don't know what this guy is saying. And I'm like, I can do it. I can probably figure it out. So as a human being who is used to mumblers. Anyway, so yeah, that's a huge improvement to use speech to text in my workflow. Totally.
Yeah. Used to be poor Serenity Caldwell had to type it in by hand.
She and I used to tag team where we would like get in a shared Google Doc, and I would, we would listen to the first 10 minutes of the call, and she'd be and then she'd start transcribing at like minute 10, and I would go back to minute 1 and start there, and we would basically just kind of like move through it separately in order to half the time if you got two typists.
Oh God, you're giving me flashbacks to sitting. You're giving me flashbacks to sitting during like an Apple keynote and furiously having to type what's being said because it was the time when you just have to write something 10 minutes after it's finished.
Yeah, you have to quote them.
The acronyms. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, this is one of the reasons that I am neither wholly against nor wholly for AI. Is that AI tools can be really good. You just got to use them wisely.
It's nice to be able, as a journalist, it's nice to be able to focus on the conversation and not focus on taking notes and being in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I mean, interview transcripts are also revolutionary. That you used to have to be thinking on your feet, as Andy said. You're thinking on your feet while you're transcribing with your hand, holding a pen on paper, and That's not enough.
I mean, when you're in a briefing and you only have 20 minutes for the briefing and you have to ask the right questions, but you've written one of the engineers said something that is like 3 acronyms in a row, and now you've totally lost your mental place and you've forgotten the question you were about to ask.
And everybody's just sitting there silently as you scribble. Not great.
Well, let's take a look. Thursday, Apple announced its Q3 results. Normally, as we said last week, kind of a mezzo kind of a
This is one of those boring quarters, right, Leo? It's a boring quarter.
Not this year. To which you can perhaps credit 2 things. One, the tariffs. And because people rushed to the store before the tariffs took place. And actually, even maybe more significant, a subsidy from the Chinese government.
Yep.
Which brought Chinese customers back to the iPhone.
That was interesting. They gave a lot of details there. It turns out that of the 13% increase in sales in Macs, or they basically attributed 1% of the increase in sales to people buying forward to get ahead of the tariffs.
Yeah, in the United States. Yeah.
So iPhone quarterly revenue by category dropped a little bit. It used to be more than half. Now it's a little less than half. Because why? We had a big quarter for the Mac. Mac revenue up 15%. Of course, iPhone revenue up 13%. Services up 13%. Home and wearables down 9%. iPad revenue down 8%. Mm-hmm. Why were they down?
Well, Apple will tell you that the iPad revenue, I think this is fair, the iPad revenue is down versus the year-ago quarter because the year-ago quarter, they introduced some new iPads.
It had some nice Pros.
Including those iPad Pros.
Yeah.
So that's always going to be tough. As they say, they call it a tough compare, which is a weird bit of jargon.
Yep.
But you get used to the weird bit of jargon. So iPad down for that. Wearables, home and accessories. Funny story when you don't really think of it this way, but like, they attributed that to the iPad tough compare. And you're thinking, well, why? What? Huh? It's not the iPad category. But guess what? When people buy iPads, they buy keyboards and cases and Apple Pencils.
And all of that's in the other category.
It's not in the iPad category. It's in this accessories part of wearable home and accessories. But yeah, those 2 categories are down. Services continues to march up. But really good quarter for the Mac, some of which is definitely pulling ahead purchasers. Because, again, remember back to April and May, where people were convinced, like with tariffs, the prices might go up any time. And it's a little like back in the pandemic where you had that moment where you think, well, I kind of need a new Mac or I kind of need a new iPhone, but I haven't, felt the impetus to go do it. I know I'll buy one eventually. And then you get the tariff day that happens and everybody says, oh, maybe now, maybe I should just go ahead and do it now, which is great. But theoretically, you're pulling sales that might have been spread over the next year into a single quarter. And Cook and Kevin Parrick, the CFO, definitely said that some portion of their iPhone and Mac sales in the US was lifted by that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good news in China too. They called out a couple of very interesting bits about how MacBook Air is the #1 selling laptop in China, Mac Mini #1 desktop in China. Given that there's been a lot of bad news coming out from China, that was all really, really good news, including the results with the iPhone. And that was reflected with, I think we talked about this a month or 2 ago, the government offered a consumer program where people would get money back for purchasing certain types of electronics. Apple, for some reason, was hanging back for the first part of that, but then they jumped back in, and clearly that was the right move.
There was a price cap, I think, is what it was, and they lowered the price of certain models to get under the price cap, which allowed the Chinese reimbursement thing to happen, and then dramatically reduce the cost of get certain iPhone models, and that seemed to be very successful. Yeah, it is an interesting combination of things. And Leo, I mean, to your point, I think you called it right, which is this is one of those quarters that we consider kind of in the doldrums. And it's just kind of like we're waiting there were no major announcements and it's not the holiday quarter. And when these announcements came out, Dan Morin, who works with me on 6 Colors, we did a little live YouTube stream afterward to just kind of talk through the charts. And he made, I thought, a really great observation, which is when you can have a routine, boring quarter generate $94 billion in revenue, we are on the precipice of Apple regularly throwing off $100 billion revenue quarters that are dull, uninteresting quarters, which is wild. But when you think about it, when they're this big, I mean, the way I described it in a piece I wrote last week is like, it's like a ratchet. It's like when they're this big, it just kind of keeps ratcheting up. And Andy mentioning the MacBook Air in China, like that's actually a great example where there are always way more iPhone users than there are Mac users, right? We know that. But like what's the upside for the Mac in China? It's like almost nobody has one, even though they have a market share, almost nobody has one, but all these people have iPhones. Every single one of those people is a potential new to Mac customer, and they said they got a lot of new to Mac customers.
Yeah.
They said, and then this is all worldwide. If you think about the iPhone and the Apple Watch as an iPhone accessory, there's so many more iPhones out there than there are Apple Watches that even though we think of the Apple Watch as this 10-year-old product that's just sort of like, it's around and it's fine. But like from Apple's perspective, every one of those iPhone users is a potential Apple Watch buyer. And they said half of the Apple Watch purchases last quarter were from people who had never bought an Apple Watch before. So that kind of like just creeping, oozing, kind of like, you have one and eventually you'll buy another or maybe a third Apple product. That is how you get to $100 billion a quarter in a boring quarter.
Well, and also I think that the Mac Mini is such a incredible Trojan horse for Apple in the sense that, I mean, it was before the M series, it was a cute computer, and you could do little things with it. But over the weekend, I was working on a project and, we needed a little bit more horsepower. I just grabbed the M4 Mac Mini and threw it in my backpack. And, I had a $100 screen that I connected it to with a cheap keyboard on a foldable table. And I was doing a lot of work with it, and it's a really, for most people's use, a little $600 Mac Mini is way more than they need, especially if they've already got their PC monitors around and, other things like that. It's not much for them to switch over. So I think it's a great switchover computer.
Yeah. Can I say something honest that I'm evaluating? It's end of 2025, beginning of 2026. I'm going to have to update my MacBook. I'm going to have to update my Mac Mini. And I'm actually thinking about offsetting it and saying, well, what if I get a Mac Mini and if I need it in a mobile situation, like coming here to podcast, I'll just use my iPad as an external display and basically make that my mobile powerhouse because it's easier to go with like $800 to a nicely kitted out Mac Mini before I spent $2,000 on a MacBook with Pro with the stuff that I needed to do.
And at $2,000, I don't know
is amazing.
I don't think that at $2,000 it's as useful. A laptop is as useful as I carry a laptop around. Like I need a battery.
For me, it is. I need.
Oh no, for you it is. Like for me, I carry the laptop around, but it's to me, I'm not willing to invest in a laptop at this point. I either need way more power or way less power. And you look at, I mean, even like I have all these little M1s, and you can go out and buy these for an M2 Mac Mini for $385.
Yeah.
And it's gonna, I have little M1s just stacked up here that do all kinds of work for me, and they're remarkably fast. And so I think that it's such a great market for Apple since the M series. Before the M series, it was like glue. You do little things with it, but since the M series came out, it's been really a magical little device.
But getting back to what Jason was saying, one of the very, very positive and remarkable things is that the retention is not just the growth of the market, and the retention is also happening worldwide. SERP had a report, I think it was released just this week, talking about. We might talk about the actual report later on today, but amongst the things that are, since we're in earnings call speak, tailwinds for Apple, is the fact that there seems to be a trend in consumers to go for the premium stuff now, and Apple's benefiting from it. And the data is showing that when, despite all the competition in China from having essentially a national phone brand, Huawei, that's making some amazing phones, that's also making some amazing phones, not only are they growing iPhones, but people are replacing their old iPhones with new iPhones, and they're with new Apple accessories. So Apple is really starting to win a cult, so to speak, inside of China, which was a year or two ago, we might have thought that maybe Apple was not going to be in such a good place in 3 or 4 years there.
Maybe if they had better AI story, they'd make as much money as Microsoft did in the quarter. But oh well, Microsoft actually became a $4 trillion business after its quarterly results, same day. They made a little more money, $24 billion, but $23 billion in 12 weeks ain't, anything to sneeze at. Obviously.
It's okay. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. They did fine. Also, their margin was 46.5% total margin, which is bananas. Yeah. And a thing that I wanted to throw in last year during this quarter, where they had kind of like a fairly low product quarter and services kept on chugging along, I realized, and we talked about it a year ago, that one of these days there's going to be a quarter where Apple makes more profit on its services than it does on its products, which, it can be overstated, right? Because the services revenue firmly comes from people who bought their products. It's not freestanding. It's built on primarily the iPhone. But that said, this quarter, they didn't quite get there, but they got really close. Because again, you've got the product margins, which are not bad, but then the services margins are like in the 90%. They're pure profit.
Well, there was a caution from the CFO, Kevin Parikh. Parikh? How do you say that?
I said Parikh.
Parikh.
I don't know, Kevin.
Who said, as we move into the September quarter, I'd like to review our outlook, which includes types of forward-looking information. The color we're providing assumes that global tariff rates, policies, and applications remain in effect as of this call.
Indeed. And the next morning, they were different.
And they did, at the time, during the call, say about $800 million loss to tariffs this quarter, but it's going to be much more next quarter.
1.1
But they also point out the current revenue share agreement with Google is in jeopardy. This month, we expect the Judge Alsup, to announce what he's going to tell Google to do. Among other things, it could be cut off that $20 billion a year payment to Apple, and that goes right to services.
Yeah, that was something that they have not really mentioned that before.
Judge Mehta, no, I'm sorry, Alsup. Yeah, Judge
Mehta. And they're listing the usual threats like the tariffs and the macroeconomic conditions globally, and then they're like, oh yeah, and also if we lose all that Google revenue, which I don't think they've done that in a call before, and it's a because that's all services revenue, and that's services revenue total. I overshot earlier. It's about 75% last quarter, but the Google stuff is, I don't know how they account for it. It's probably not 100% profit. They probably put some degree of Safari engineering against it and claim that it's, paying for Safari or something like that. But I think we could all agree that it's probably like a 95% margin amount of money.
And $20 billion would be about 20% of the total. So that's a 20% drop, potentially. I'm not sure if Judge Mehta will do that, to be honest.
And also it depends on whether they're going to continue to operate in an appeal.
That's right, because we still have
if they have a backup plan. But the great mystery of that case is everybody keeps circling around the idea that most of the punishment for Google would not harm Google, but would harm everybody who Google is paying
Mozilla.
money.
That's
right. It would harm Mozilla. It would harm Apple. It would harm everybody. That Google would just walk away not being able to write checks for $20 billion a year. What a punishment that would be for them. Also, it's unclear. Like it may be that they end up in a browser choice situation where they can't be the default and they have to be chosen by people, but that they're still allowed to pay for the ones who knows how they're gonna do it. But it's an appreciable issue for Apple. In fact, I think a bigger risk for them than tariffs, because Apple seems to have a few different ways to deal with tariffs.
And I think if they're able to continue to pay, if people are using their product, the impact to Apple will be much lower, because Google is so far ahead. like if you're using if you're using a search engine other than Google, you're decided you wanted to play on gravel. It's not close. Like I go up every once in a while and try other ones out, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm gonna go back to the normal one, because it is so dominant. It not in just the market size, but in the quality of the result, that I just don't understand.
Well, you sound like you're coming to us from 3 years ago. I completely disagree.
I don't. When I go to
don't agree either.
What I will say is that
that's not true at all, Alex. Google's 80% of my use is Chat.
I don't know.
Try Coggy. Try DuckDuckGo. Try something.
I tried DuckDuckGo last week, and I was like, I'm never going to use this again. This is trash.
The other, for me, the other search engines are good for if you want different types of results. But I never get results as good and as focused to what I'm looking for, what my interests are, than I do with Google. And also, the thing is, like, as much as analysts are predicting problems with AI-based search from competitors, they're still. I mean, Google search, believe it or not, is still growing like 10 to 12% a quarter. So it's hard to beat the service that actually
Google
has the
pays
verb.
$20 billion a year to Apple so that they continue to make that the default.
Yeah, but
with
people, if you gave people the option of Coggy, if you gave them a clean choice, meaning their default engine is not set, at this point in the installation, you are going to pick the default search engine. How many people are going to pick Coggy?
Given the fact that they probably don't know how to. Given that they probably don't know how to go back and change it later. Like if you showed it to me, I'm like, I don't even know where to find that. So I'm just going to hit Google. Like, I'm not going to try to figure. And the reason I have such a strong opinion is that I saw an ad for DuckDuckGo and said, oh, I haven't tried DuckDuckGo. And I decided for the whole afternoon, I'm going to use DuckDuckGo for searching. And by the end, I was like, never again.
See, this is to what Leo said. That sounds exactly how I felt a year or two ago, but I don't feel that way now. And I think that part of it is that Google. I mean, I do use Coggy now. People aren't going to use Coggy because you have to pay for it, and so that's fair. And the argument is not what are people going to choose. The argument is are there better choices. The argument is there, and I would say that your mileage may vary, and there are certainly certain things where I go back to Google search because I know that Google has a better comprehensive product. But I will say this, as somebody who's used Google since day one as my primary, that the introduction of AI summaries at the top of Google searches has so poisoned my relationship with Google that I don't use it for search anymore.
Now,
because the top half of it is garbage that is lies and is wrong and is completely false, and I don't want to waste my time on it anymore. And I think that's Google so headlong rushing into AI because it sees it as its future, perhaps correctly, that it's destroying its product in the present.
And I admit that, like, if I'm looking for information now, I just go to ChatGPT. If I'm looking for a specific thing, I am then going to for a thing, I go to Google. So I don't, like, if I'm looking for general information, because it has links. I mean, I asked ChatGPT a bunch of things, and then it gives me links, and I can go refer back to whatever, like, did it really get this right, or where is it coming from, and so on and so forth. And I don't know. I don't find that ChatGPT is less accurate than most of those stuff written on the internet. I mean, I look at the stuff, when people write articles about anything I know, I'm always like, okay, all right. It's cute. So.
Yeah, you're just old school, Alex. I understand. It's okay. We'll see you in the future.
I would say 80% of my time now that would have gone to a Google search is now ChatGPT. So it's also a much smaller part of my.
Well, there you go. That's perhaps a shift.
Yeah. Me too. When I need to know, like, is the title of a Broadway musical italicized or in quotes, I go to Gemini. I don't necessarily, because I'll get question answer.
Yeah, so, I don't want to.
Just the fact that people can question Google's hegemony is a big shift.
I know it.
I mean, 5 years ago, we would all be in agreement here.
I mean, the challenge with searching now is that you go, okay, I want to see the top 10 printers or the top 10 whatever, and if I do a search, I'm going to get ad-laden garbage from every website that I go to that's a top 10 list of that stuff, unless I go to Consumer Reports or Six Colors. I'm going to get
Barcutter. Yeah, basically you have to not trust the search there.
You can't trust the search at all.
Exactly, because it's all been gamed.
But I asked ChatGPT, and it just gives me a bunch of them, and I go research them, and I'm like, oh, that looks great.
We're actually going to have the CEO, the founder of Coggy, on Intelligent Machines tomorrow. So
nice.
If you're interested.
Alex, you made a really great point there, which is one of the areas where the chatbots are actually better than Google is that all the SEO garbage on the internet targets Google. It's meant to game Google. And as a result, Google is fooled by it because as much as they're trying to fool Google.
Right.
And the chatbots, I think, generally are better at saying, what are the reliable sources here? Let's link to those. And so you find often, and that for me, it's all about finding reliable sources and not junk. And the chatbots, because they're not the ones yet being as gamed as Google is by SEO people on the internet, the results end up being better there. But that's Google being a victim of its own success, essentially.
Well, search differently too. It isn't so much that you're looking for the link, right? Which is what Google was very good at. Now you're looking for different kinds of things.
And I'm having a conversation, like if I was trying to find a PoE router, a PoE switch that is powered by battery. And I'm sitting there like, what are the issues and what are the options? And I'm sitting there going back and forth with ChatGPT. I don't know. In 15 minutes, I figured out what I needed, and it would have taken me, half a day to just try to search through and read articles to try to figure out the same thing. Back to
Apple's results. Anything else, Jason, that kind of stuck out to you as being of interest?
Well, I mean, we've covered the big stuff. It's I mean, the fact that it's so huge, the fact that they let's talk about AI just in the sense of mergers and acquisitions, because that was the thing that kept on coming out.
Yeah, they kept saying, "Are you going to buy Perplexity?" What do you?
So he said, look, they're increasing their investment. They did so current quarter, doing so next quarter. Reallocating people on staff, trying to send the message that we're on it. We are spending more in R&D. We're taking our current staff and reallocating them toward AI. We do believe in it. There was a meeting, which we'll probably get to in a little bit, an all-staff meeting, basically, where Tim Cook really did the evangelizing the importance of AI to the company. And then, again, these analysts are just like, but really, buying anything? And Tim Cook sounded almost offended because he's like, look, we buy a company every few weeks.
We've acquired around 7 companies this year. And that's companies from all walks of life, not all AI oriented. So we're doing one.
Think of it as one every several weeks. We're busy. I'm working here, right? Like we're on it. But he does say it could be big, it could be small. But this is, I think, the key insight here, which is not new. It is the way Apple approaches this. And so sometimes you get people from the outside who are like, oh, Apple doesn't know what it's going to do with AI, so it'll buy an AI company and figure it out. And that is not what he said, and that has never been Apple's approach, which is, as he put it, we ask ourselves whether a company can help us accelerate a roadmap, which again, I got to roll my eyes back into my head about the mixed metaphor of accelerating. Is that you throw a roadmap across the room or something? But this is the point: is Apple buys companies because they help Apple get where it wants to go, not because Apple doesn't know where to go. And so what he's really saying here is we have a strategy. We have a lot of thoughts about what we want to do in AI. And if there are companies that we could buy that will help us get there, we will buy them. And we can. And they don't have to be big. They don't have to be small. We can do whatever we want. And, I think this is the most he will ever say, but he's not saying they're not interested in investing in AI or potentially buying companies that help them get where they need to go. I don't think this is a statement that they're about to buy a bunch of AI companies, but it would not surprise me at all. It does feel like he's saying we may very well be doing that.
This is Ben Thompson's analysis in Stratechery. He says, to be clear, that's a pretty bog standard Apple answer, but I think it's notable that Cook sees no need to change that answer. Apple buys companies to tuck into its roadmap. It doesn't change the entire map, and there was certainly no signal the company plans on changing that approach.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, this is how Apple plays its game, and like, when we can disagree with it, right? You could say Apple doesn't get it, but I think Apple does get it, but is trying to get it in their own particular way and their own particular direction, which, as Ben goes into in that piece, Apple has some advantages in that its AI is not necessarily a threat to its core business. And in fact, the fact that it makes, as we've talked about here, makes phones, and that AI stuff runs on phones, and that Apple can continue to have a device business, that they've got a little more room to maybe approach this from a different direction than Meta or Google. Doesn't absolve them, right? There's still lots of hard issues out there, but that they seem to be having a strategy that is what we would expect Apple to have for something like this.
And the strategy is still sell more iPhones, sell more iPads, sell more Macs. I thought it was kind of interesting that in Tim's prepared comments, It was practically a WWDC, like first 10 minutes of the keynote. It was, hey, here's what we're doing with iPad OS. iPad OS is going to make the iPad a lot more productive and a lot more useful. Hey, here's what we got, this new liquid glass. So it was like, as I'm sort of listening to it live, like just sentence by sentence, I'm wondering to myself, what analyst is thinking, oh, thank God, they've got a new version of the OS coming out this year. But when you think about it just as in total, he's basically making the case that here is the strategy that has made us into a $3 trillion company that has given us this kind of growth. We are not going to simply say, well, we're in the business of making salad dressing because lots of other companies are making salad dressing now. This is our core business. We know what we're doing, and we've got a good roadmap, and we're sticking to it.
Actually, Thompson makes the point, talking about CapEx, capital expenditures, that Apple is extraordinarily conservative. They're doing about $4 billion a year, which is a fraction of what, for instance, Google is doing.
And they're not buying, enormous amounts of GPUs. They're instead talking about making investments in private cloud compute. Yeah. And we know that they're, based on Mark Gurman's reports, that they're talking about doing a custom chip for their future private cloud compute that's still based on Apple Silicon, but it's a different kind of profile. Right now, they're stuffing like M2 Pros or whatever into their cloud infrastructure. But they're like, the investments they're making are very Apple-y investments. Yeah. And that seems to be, again, it's not a guarantee of it being the right strategy, but it is very much them doing their thing.
Being careful, being somewhat conservative. They historically have spent less on research and development than anybody else.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know if I saw this on one of Jason's charts or somebody else's, but their increase in spending on R&D is actually outstripping their increase in spending on capital expenditures. They got one direct question, I think, during the Q&A about it, and Tim pretty much reiterated what saying before that yes, you can expect us to accelerate our capital expenditures as we continue to have to build out more compute for our Apple Intelligence private compute sector. But he was very, very strict to remind people that we have a hybrid strategy, that we are not going to simply, if we need more compute, that's not this special Apple private compute. We're just going to continue to buy it from Google. Let them buy the land. Let them ruin the environment. We'll just write the checks and not have to basically take on all this extra debt. So yeah, it's not like Google's calls where every single quarter it's like, how much did you spend on capital expenditures this time, and how much more are you spending than you promised? You told us you were going to be spending last quarter.
I think also Apple's not as shotgun related. So a lot of other people have a lot of R&D, but they're experimenting with so many different things all at one time, and most of them are failing. Apple tends to pick a handful of things, and so I think it's a much more focused approach. I think Apple might be able to make more money if they were doing more things, but they could also become kind of a fujitsu.
You've seen Google's Pixel 10 ad, but the Pixel 10 is coming out later this week. This ad basically casts, I'll turn on the audio. I guess I can do that. It's an ad, right?
It's Google. They're not
going to take me down.
Not that uptight.
Are they? I don't know.
You can upload photos.
So this is a 30-second ad to show you how AI.
You want. So you could upload a picture of a table and say, "Can you create an image of this table?"
I don't know what I'm doing here. Hold on. There we go.
It was just a voiceover. Yeah.
There we go. Here we go. This is Google's Pixel 10 ad, which isn't playing now. Oh, there it is.
If you buy a new phone because of a feature that's coming soon, but it's been coming soon for a full year,
Apple,
you could change your definition of soon, or you could just change your phone.
Oh, wow. That is kind of gutsy from a company that is famous for announcing and killing things.
Yeah, it'll come back to you again, just like it did for Samsung. It'll all come back to you again.
Yeah. Gutsy, but weird. I mean, they have to go after Apple because they can't go after Samsung because they're their partners.
Yeah,
and this is the sort of claim that you can only make. Like this is the last year which you can say anything like that. Because what's the saying that is, if it's good, people will always remember if the thing you ship was terrible. They will forget if it's good, they'll forget that the thing was late. As soon as Apple delivers really good phone-based AI services, the fact that the Pixel phones had them 5 years earlier almost becomes irrelevant, and it's rather optimistic to think that any iPhone user is going to think, oh gosh, I'm sick and tired of waiting another 6 months for a voice assistant that works great. I'm going to switch all of my apps and all of my accessories and all of my platforms to something that I haven't used ever.
Well, and especially when, again, for an Apple user, it is effortless. It is. I literally hold down a button and say Janet, and I immediately have ChatGPT, and I ask it whatever I want. It doesn't. I mean, it's. I don't. I guess I just don't. I don't feel any pressure for Apple to go any further with it right now.
I did buy another phone, but I wish it were an iPhone. This is a Samsung phone. The new Fold. I was very interested in, what this form factor is going to look like next year when Apple does something similar. And I love the form factor. I love it that I can open it up and get, an iPad-sized screen out of it and all that. But I don't love it that it's just Android. It's just
the problem for me is that I there was somebody that had just bought one where I was working, and he showed it to me, and I opened it up, and the first thing I did is I put my finger across that center piece.
Oh,
and I was
you
like,
can
nope.
still feel it. It's still there.
I didn't say it.
It's better than it was. I mean, it's gonna. Well, what if Apple has that? Because they're gonna.
I won't buy it.
Next year,
I have no interest in the phone.
I suspect Apple's will be 1 year better than that, right? Because it'll be next year's
still going to be a
Samsung display, and then. I mean, look, the Apple folding phone is going to be self-sorting. Like some people are going to love it, and other people are going to go, nope. And guess what? There are many other iPhones for you to buy instead.
I couldn't help but think, though, if this were an iPhone, I would, because you've got a full-size, basically, phone on the front, and not any thicker than a regular phone. And then you have this opportunity.
And I will say, the person that showed it to me just loved it. Like, loved it.
The people who love it will love it, right?
Yeah.
And and I would love it more. I'm just not. The Samsung cruft is hard to get used to, and I think it'll be nice when it's an iPhone. Let's just put it that way. All right, let's take a little break. Come back. We have much more to talk about. Those were the results. A good quarter for Apple, I think.
3 billionth iPhone sold, he said.
Oh, yeah, total. All time after almost 10 years.
They picked that one off the line, but that's if you look at how many years it took to get to 1 billion and 2 billion and 3 billion, you can see the kind of shocking growth in iPhone shipments.
2% of the market. Steve Jobs would have to be very, very happy with that.
It's only 2%. It's about 80% of the profit.
No, I'm sorry. No, I remember when the iPhone was first announced. We'll be happy to get 2% of the market. Like, you got to get a little bit better than that.
It's almost 50 in the United States, but it's probably not more than 20 or 30% of the market globally, right? I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I think it's high teens. I think
teens.
Last time I checked.
Yeah.
And that goes to what I was saying about growth opportunity for Apple, right? They don't have a lot of markets where there's no potential for them to sell more product,
except that they refuse to do a cheap one, and that's what the bulk of.
And that's I mean that was another thing about about one of those reports where the report was not just about sales but also revenue. And Apple is behind Samsung in actual units shipped, but I think that if I'm remembering correctly, they are at the very, very top of the thing, 43% revenue versus 12 to 14% from Samsung. It's like there's such a profit. Sorry, that's.
And I think that the issue is that they don't sell very well. Like they've made ones that are cheaper, and you look at the sales, and the sales on the expensive ones are doing just way better. I mean, it's more volume and more margin. Why would you do the smaller ones?
Well, we might be getting ahead of ourselves, but there was another report about the 16E, but another research group that had access to the first full quarter that they were tracking iPhone sales. They're saying the 16E is doing exceptionally well, where it sells much, much better than the iPhone SE in a comparable market. That is people are choosing them instead of legacy phones that are in the line. They were saying specifically that it's doing gangbusters in Japan for some reason. So I agree that I don't think there's a place for Apple to make a $300 phone or a good $200 phone. Samsung and Motorola can make exceptionally good $200 and $300 phones, but that's not why people want an Apple iPhone. They want something that has that has that Wessonality, that meatiness, that savoriness when you hold it and you use it. So
is that what they call that, Wessonality?
I'm just Your chicken got
we're going to take a break.
Florence Henderson, you're still alive in our hearts.
Wessonality. That's Andy Ihnatko with a callback to the good old days of television advertising. He is always fun with that kind of retro stuff. Just ask him how many classic iMacs he has. Macintoshes. How many do you still have? You said you had dozens.
I had dozens. Now I felt as though like I'm spending too much money to store them, so I kept like maybe the 6 best.
That's all you
and
need.
Gave the rest away.
That's all you need. Six Mac classics. That's all you need. Jason Snell's here. He's got one and a load runner. Everybody's saying, what's that in the background on his 2CI? It's a load runner.
Apple 2C running off of a USB-C cable through an adapter, which is hilarious, and a VGA and HDMI output. And it's running Championship Load Runner booted off of an SD card on floppy, using floppy emu. Which
was that one of the first color Apple IIs?
No, the 2E, actually the 2 Plus supported color.
Oh, okay.
Through composite out. It's just the challenge these days is getting old computers to do something other than composite because analog TVs are gone. Yeah. But there are lots of adapters to do HDMI, or in this case, that's a VGA flat panel that's running behind me. I just like to prove occasionally that all the computers behind me do work. They all do work.
Yes. You might take some work to get them to work, but they work.
Yeah, even there's one up there that you haven't noticed yet that we'll talk about later. So.
Oh, now everybody's going to be looking carefully. Mm-hmm. Also, Alex Lindsay from officehours.global and 090.media. Our show this week brought to you by 1Password. 1Password. Over half of IT pros in a survey say that job one, their biggest challenge is securing SaaS apps. Isn't that interesting? You know, with the growing problems of SaaS sprawl and shadow IT, I guess it's not hard to see why. But there is a solution. It's part of 1Password's extended access management. It's called Trellica. Trellica by 1Password can discover and secure access to all your apps, whether they're managed or not, whether they're approved or not. Trellica by 1Password inventories every single app in use at your company. Then, pre-populated app profiles, it knows about every single one of them, assess the SaaS risks, letting you manage access, optimize spend, and enforce security best practices across every single app your employees use, even the shadow IT apps they don't want you to know about. It also lets you securely onboard and offboard employees and meet compliance goals. It's a very cool solution. Trellica, Trelica, by 1Password provides a complete solution for SaaS access governance, and it's just one of many ways that extended access management helps teams strengthen compliance and security. Of course, we all know 1Password's award-winning password manager, trusted by millions of users in over 150,000 businesses, from IBM to Slack. But now they're doing more than just securing passwords with 1Password's extended access management. I want you to check it out. It is a way to protect your company against those SaaS apps. 1Password is ISO 27001 certified with regular third-party audits and the industry's largest bug bounty. 1Password exceeds the standards set by various authorities and is a leader in security. Take the first step to better security for your team by securing credentials and protecting every application, even unmanaged shadow IT. Learn more at 1password.com/MacBreak. That's 1password.com/MacBreak, all lowercase. We thank you so much for your support of MacBreak Weekly. 1password.com/MacBreak. All right, enough of the earnings. Let's see what else is going on. We've got lots of.
Can we segue into Tim's show?
So he hasn't. When is the last time they did an all hands at Apple? It's been a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's a while. Like they actually literally got people into, I think, the Steve Jobs Theater, and then
I think they're nervous about leaks because in past, that's been a big problem. And of course, immediately
you might though use it as a way to leak a message about how seriously you take AI.
Oh, so this is when he says all hands. It was everybody, yeah.
I think all employees were supposed to either be there or tune in. Yeah,
watch it. Wow. What did he say? How long was it? What are the leaks say?
I will start with a tidbit that I got, which is that 3 billionth iPhone, they intercepted it off the line, and he had it at the event and said, "What should we do with it?" Which is
That's pretty funny.
It belongs in a museum. Okay, that's how that works. But
wow.
But then he pumped him up about AI, right? Which he should do.
Yeah, that was was that the point? Was to be reassured. We're working on it.
Yeah, and Tim, but there are a lot of. I agree with Jason that. It's not as though they wanted this as a press release for everybody, but they knew that certain quotes would make it out. And so, like Tim was saying, that, hey, look, we've rarely been first. Like, we weren't first with the desktop computer, we weren't first with the phone, we weren't first with the iPad, but we think we did the best. We've transformed it. We think we're going to do the same thing with AI. Federici was talking about Shlomo and saying that our start to finish, top to bottom rewrite, it's exceeding our expectations.
Yeah. Which is new, right? Because they at WWDC they weren't going to overpromise and underdeliver, but in a thing heard, through sources from an event where
Mark
head of
Gurman
software
had
says
the whole damn thing.
Yeah, right. But that's a good venue to say, oh, not only are we going to ship what we did, but it's working and better than we thought, which is not something that we've heard before. That's how you get that stuff out there. Plus, it serves, I think, a super important purpose, which is to try to evangelize to the people who are working at Apple. Yeah. One, yes, AI is important. Two, you should be using it because, this is one of those things that I know people are like, who don't like AI or creeped out by that, but it's like, to understand what AI is good and bad at, you need to actually use it. And so he's saying, yes, you need to use this. We're not trying to put our head in the sand. You need to be using this stuff every day, understanding what it's good for. And then also, I think he's sending the message to people who might be wavering about, like, do I want to be at Apple working on AI stuff, to say, no, we do take it seriously. This is a company commitment. So, it's exactly what you would expect him to do, to kind of whip up the troops and say, I'm not kidding here. This is super important. This is how you change or at least direct corporate culture, is with stuff like this. And knowing that message is going to get out via Mark Gurman and others to the rest of the world.
It felt like almost reassurance, right? He says, according to Gurman, the AI revolution is as big or bigger as the internet, smartphones, and cloud computing or apps.
Yeah.
And this is the pull quote: Apple must do this. Apple will do this. We will beat them on the beaches. We will beat. This is sort of ours to grab.
Right. That's a great pep talk, though, right? Because he's not saying reassurance. He's saying, if you think that AI is going to blow over and we don't need to worry about it, you're wrong. It's important to Apple, and we need to be there.
He
and
also
that's
said
exactly
we
the
will
right
make
message.
the investment to do it.
Yeah.
So
our strategy,
Churchillian.
Our strategy is not to simply allow people to use ChatGPT in our phones. Our strategy is not to buy another company and rebrand the product. That this is it's not as ambitious a statement as what Sundar Pichai said like 10 years ago, when he basically said we are repivoting the company towards AI, just as we repivoted toward mobile and just as we founded on search. But it is like, no, this is not just going to be a flavor enhancer that we're going to add to our products. We are going to be a part of our portfolio of skills will be AI, not because it's a trendy thing, not because analysts are expecting it, but because the guy at the very, very top knows that this is the next wave. We have an opportunity here, and we are going to seize the hell out of it. So
he echoed the apologia that people often use with Apple, which is, we've rarely been first. There was a PC before the Mac, he said. There was a smartphone before the iPhone. There were many tablets before the iPad. There was an MP3 player before iPod. But Apple invented the modern versions of those product categories, and this is how I feel about AI.
I mean, there is an argument to be made that could still be true, right? The argument is what Apple's good at historically is creating products, full-on products that people want to use. And so from that worldview, you could say a bare LLM may, in hindsight, not be a full-on product, but a feature that needs to be used to build a full-on product. That would be the argument, right? Is that those earlier devices were improved because Apple kind of, and this was Steve Jobs' superpower, right? Is the sort of like trying to see the bigger picture of like what is a full-on product that someone would want. That's why he kept saying the computer for the rest of us, and so that would be the argument. The counter argument would be that this isn't like that because Apple poo-pooed the LLM and the LLM is the thing, and that it's unlikely that they're ever going to be at the, revolutionize it and be at the forefront. But I think it says something about what Apple views its strategy as, is that bare AI is not a product, it's a feature, and that Apple's really good at making products that people want to use. And so if they can crack all the right ways to fit AI into the products they sell that will make people delighted, then they will have done their job.
And I think that also when you look at device-based AI, other people can do that. It's not like Apple's the only one that can do that, but Apple could potentially put an awful lot of development into that. They have control over the hardware, so they can build the hardware so that it's really defined around that, and then they provide it to the developers at theoretically no cost.
I would argue that's the stage we're kind of at right now with AI. I'm wearing 2 different AI wearables that are recording everything. For a long time I wore the one from B that got bought by Amazon. I've got a third on the way. This is the Omi. This is the Rewind. I'm sorry, Limitless. They changed their name. And I've got the Fieldy coming. And they all record everything and then analyze it and give you synopsis of your day, meeting notes, that kind of thing. I think that the wearable is the product, right? Of course, now, Apple may not think that it's something like this. It may be glasses. In fact, I think
glasses or AirPods or Apple Watch or something that is then powered by an iPhone. Yeah.
And Tim was asked this question during the Q&A of the report earnings call, and basically said the same thing that Sundar Pichai said, as an analyst was saying, well, but do you think that this is going to be a threat to iPhone sales? Is it going to, whatever the next thing is it going to replace the iPhone? He said, no, I think it's going to be something you use alongside a phone, which is something that I was glad to hear him say, because if he said differently, I would think, what do I not understand? Because it seems so natural to me that a device that replaces an iPhone or a smartphone just does such a wide range of things. I can't imagine a simple AI device that can handle the load of all of those different tasks at once.
Tim said, I've never felt so much excitement and so much energy before as right now. It is kind of a cheerleader talk, right? Yeah, it's a pep talk.
Well, it's a cheer. I mean, I would say pep talk more than cheerleader, because I don't think this is. I would not read this as, yay, we're doing great. I would read this as, if you're not taking this seriously, if you don't think this is part of what our strategy is, if you can kind of like get along ignoring it, you must stop, because it's central to what we're doing. We're investing in this. We want you to do it. He said everybody needs to be using this stuff and understanding it. Yeah. And he said this is the future. This is just as revolutionary as the smartphone or the internet, right? Like he said that. And I think that is, honestly, depending, I think there are some people at Apple who will take it more cheerleadery, like, yeah, right. I think other people will see it kind of as a rebuke, because they were people who were more skeptical and holding back. And I think what we've seen in the management changes this year is that some of the people who were kind of like holding back and being more kind of skeptical or academic about it are like the people who were running the Siri team lost those jobs, got transferred elsewhere, because this is, they are serious, and the eye of Sauron is now on all of them for this stuff. Yeah. And I'm it's how you read it, but I would say much more about making it clear that this is important rather than saying that everything is good status quo. I don't think he was saying that.
This isn't a special project. This is part of where we are. It made me think a little bit about, was it Mark Markula back in the early 80s who sent that memo saying, hey, look, I mean, if we're telling people that our Apple II is a good word processor, why do we still have typewriters around the office?
Right.
From now on, you're not going to get, if you make a requisition for a typewriter, you're not going to get it. You're going to get a printer.
Tim said the product pipeline, which I can't talk about. It's amazing, guys. It's amazing. Some of it you'll see.
Tell Mark Gurman you already are. So amazing. I can't tell you.
Some of it you'll see soon.
He said,
Some of it will come later.
I have never felt so much excitement, TEMENT, and so much energy.
Don't mention the thing. Don't mention the thing. Don't mention the thing.
Well, in fact, we're probably only about a month out. September 9th, you said, Jason Snell, and now there seems to be some convergence. In fact, there was even a leak from stores in Europe that
best guess, yeah,
September 9th. And it does make sense. They don't want to do it September 11th. They don't, it makes sense.
They like a Tuesday. They like a Tuesday, and that first Tuesday, because it's Labor Day is on the 1st of September this year.
Right.
I think that they don't like that. I think that's too early for them. So September 9th.
Yep.
It's easier now because you don't have a huge crew getting ready for a live event, but usually Mondays aren't good. If you want to move press around or anything else, you don't want to move them around on the weekends. And so Tuesday's what the day almost everybody uses because you have the most amount of week for the press because the press resets every week. So it's not Monday, which means no one has to prep on Sunday. It also means that all of Apple's PR people and everything else don't have to have their last meetings on Sunday.
Right. And they do have. It is a live event where it'll be a pre-recorded video event, but they will have to get all of the people there to move media around in Cupertino at the Steve Jobs Theater because they do that now. And that is beyond habit. That is also another reason to put it on a Tuesday. Although I think they did it the day after Labor Day one time, but even a couple of years ago, but even then it's not ideal. There are better choices. So that's why I think it'll be the day after
Labor Day with a live show and maybe 5 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. 2 years ago though, or 3 years ago, I was out in the desert and I drove home and I was like, am I really going to be at Cupertino tomorrow? And I was, and it was very weird, but generally, yeah. So I think it's the 9th. So yeah, it's right around the corner. We're going to get there real fast. New iPhone stuff. So no wonder Tim is just so excited.
As many as 15 new products next month or in the next couple of months.
Yeah, well, they'll stagger, right? They'll do a September event, and they usually then follow it up with either they'll do press releases or they'll do an October event somewhere. Sometimes they've done that in New York for influencers and press, and other times they've just done it as PR. But they'll. This is their turning over their lineup as best they can before the holidays. So that's what's coming next.
They also, according to Gurman, have an AKI team. Which
speaking of Robbie Walker, the guy who got kicked off of Siri.
Yeah, he's the new head of that, answering to John Giandrea. So
World knowledge.
Is this the team you don't want to be on?
It may be, but it sounds like what they've done is they've said basically you guys always felt like you were more academically inclined and kind of thinking big picture stuff, and so it's like, okay, your job is to go build our ChatGPT. Your job is to build our world knowledge engine that is going to be able to be tapped into by our users instead of relying on ChatGPT to do it for those big picture questions, searching all knowledge in the world in order to give you an answer. And that's something that, the rest of Apple, I think it's very clear, is focused on device and in private cloud compute models that are going to be less capable of that kind of thing. And so they put this group off on the side and said, you work on, and again, this is actually something we've talked about here before, the idea that like ChatGPT is there and maybe Gemini and maybe Claude, maybe other things will be there now integrated with iOS. But like in the long run, you probably would like to have the default be an Apple model and then let you choose other models. So that's what this is. It's like once you guys are good enough with your model, we'll put it in our OS as the default. But until then, just, work on it over there.
ChatGPT did hand off, Sam Altman did hand off. One of the reasons you may want to use Apple at some point in the future is like, we might have to hand all your searches over to the government if they subpoena them. He just flat out said that. And so this is the, I think Apple has the potential. They are behind. They've been behind before, and they have the potential to build something that is far more private and potentially more powerful than a lot of the other ones over time. But they've been the slow horse in almost every product line that they've been in.
Yeah, and I think as never before, they have the benefit of all this research that has been worked on for 10 or 15 years by people who saw this coming early. But hey, you got people to copy off of or to learn from, so they're not necessarily starting from zero.
They have a highly the biggest advantage that Apple has is a highly invested client base that has all their hardware, has all hundreds of movies or tens of movies in their Apple thing. Like moving an Apple user is so hard because the ecosystem is so wound so tightly that they have a lot of time. And people are still using AOL, and they had a lot less time. So Apple's got a decade to figure it out before it would. I mean, it might look bad on their stock, on their quarterlies, but they've got a lot of time before it was a real emergency.
I also got to wonder. It's been known for a long time that Apple has had its own spider out there on the web. Like, what kind of data has that spider been collecting, and will that help them to build this answer bot, right? Or are they going to have to basically write something brand new for it? So
that's what it stands for, by the way. I think I didn't mention is answers, knowledge, and information. It sounds a little bit like a ChatGPT, or maybe even more like a Perplexity, which is more focused on that kind of thing. They see it as a service, part of their in-house AI services that would then support something like a smart Siri and so forth.
Yeah, an answer engine capable of crawling the web to respond to general knowledge questions.
How do you... it feels to me, especially given it's Robbie Walker and John Giandrea, that maybe this is the equivalent of Silicon Valley TV shows putting somebody on the roof.
I was thinking about that kid in second grade who stayed behind to help the teacher instead of going to third grade. It's a little bit like that. But again, if this is a bigger, longer term project and this is the stuff that they were always advocating, it could be a little bit of both, right? It's sort of like, you don't want to be over here, or we don't want you over here, but we'll put you over there because a lot of this, I think, has come down to, we need to ship something that works, and that they were unable to do it. And in this case, it's more like, this is long term. You're not going to be pressured to ship this next year. So get the work going in a more, R&D kind of role, really.
All right. Well, I'm just glad Robbie's got something to do besides eat lunch. In fact, if it makes sense that Apple would, try a number of different avenues. Do you think the buying Perplexity is still on the table?
Unknown. There was
it's that rumor about what Mistral, the French LLM, is a stronger, I think, rumor that makes more sense, right? Because that would come with its own technology and be something that would probably fit into Apple pretty well.
Yeah, Cloudflare might have tanked Perplexity's chances with their. Although Perplexity responded pretty well, I thought, to the Cloudflare blog post. Yeah. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow on Intelligent Machine.
I think Perplexity was also getting some bad press this week about how they've been ignoring.
That's what I'm talking about. That came out of Cloudflare. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll see. Probably given Apple's caution about taking on anything controversial at all, that might have put the kibosh on it. All right, little break. We're going to have some more in just a bit. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason in the house. Our show today brought to you by ZocDoc. I'm worried about you. You're making a lot of excuses these days. Remember that doctor's appointment that you were supposed to make a while ago, but you kept pushing it off? You know the excuses. I'm too busy. I forgot where I put my insurance card. It's just a cold. It'll pass. Or it'll be fine. It'll heal on its own. I'd rather watch football or play that round of golf, or frankly, I'd rather clean out the garage. Look, we've all been there. I understand. Booking a doctor's appointment is daunting, right? But this doesn't have to be the case. Thanks to ZocDoc, those excuses are no longer valid. ZocDoc makes finding and booking a doctor who's right for you as easy as can be, much easier than cleaning out the garage. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. I've used it myself. It's fantastic. With ZocDoc, you can book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 doctors and every specialty. I mean, not just MDs. You got mental health professionals, dentists, primary care to urgent care. I was looking for gerontologists for my folks, and I found them locally. In fact, it's great because you can filter for doctors who take your insurance, who are in the area, and even are a good fit for, your particular style as a patient, any medical need that you might have, because they've got hundreds of verified patient reviews. So you can read those reviews and find the type of care and support you're looking for, from good bedside manners, fast wait times, to doctors with great listening skills. Whatever it is you need, you can find. And once you find that right doctor, you can actually, right on the site, see their actual appointment openings and choose a time slot that works for you. And then click, and you'll be instantly booking a visit. This is so amazing. Appointments made through ZocDoc happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking. More often than not, you can even get same-day appointments, which is great for that procrastinator that we all are. You know, well, you're going. It's later today. I use this, and you should too. Stop putting off those doctor appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly and for their support of your health. That's important too. Wild, Tim Cook has now been CEO for longer than Steve Jobs. That's kind of amazing. We can't forget Steve. That's the problem, you know.
That's a very, very long shadow, isn't it?
It is. It really is. So Steve was Apple's CEO from 97 to 2000, 841 days. Official CEO from 2000 until his resignation in 2011. A total of 4,249 days. Obviously, Mac Rumors needed a little bit of something to write an article about. Tim Cook has now been CEO for 5,090 days.
I mean, you know, I think that for Apple wouldn't probably exist without Steve Jobs, and definitely wouldn't be in the hadn't been pointed in the direction that it is without Steve Jobs, but it wouldn't have gotten to the scale without Tim Cook.
Completely agree.
It's just, yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah.
It's interesting to sort of think about how a personality like Steve Jobs would have confronted some of the very, very specific and unique challenges that Apple faced in the past 10 years, particularly in the last 4 years. It's like, yeah. You're kind of happy you have someone who's a lot more diplomatic in that seat in the 21st century.
I love Steve, but boy, if people told him that his business was, I mean, like the whole mindset of we're going to control it, we're going to take every last penny off the table, all that came from him because he was trying to bring Apple back from death. And if some government regulator told him that they had to change their policies, I mean, it would have been thoughts on Flash was stern, but it would have been much more stern than that. And I think it would have gotten them in trouble, but because he was not that kind of guy. That said, by now, even if Steve had a clean bill of health and was still with us, he would have long since been just like on the board or off, I think, at this point. I don't think he would have stuck around in that job for that long regardless. But yeah he would not have been the most politic of people.
Yeah, going to a factory with Donald Trump I mean, for all of his good things that are unique and that should be applauded, there are also a bunch of things that he was probably really bad. He was the right guy at the right time. He saved Apple. Not only did he create Apple, he saved it by coming back when they were almost out of money, getting an investment from Microsoft. But both of them deserve credit.
Absolutely.
We have a new candidate for the Apple Card. As you know, Goldman Sachs wants to get out of it. We talked last week about JP Morgan Chase being interested. Now Visa, according to the Wall Street Journal, has said, hey, we would do it. They've offered Apple $100 million. Come on, guys. That's chump change to Apple. That's nothing to take over the credit card from Mastercard. It is currently a Mastercard. And it doesn't matter to me. I do have an Apple Card. I use it kind of like all the time.
Is this just like a inducement to get whatever bank takes it over to rebrand it as a Visa instead of a Mastercard? Because like Visa is not a bank.
No, this is exactly right. That's what the Journal says. Apple is expected to select a network for the card before it picks the bank to replace Goldman Sachs. So you pick the plumbing before you build the house.
Right, because right now it's a MasterCard, and so I could see Visa saying, we really want that traffic. That would be really good for us. So let's get in there.
Yeah, they don't have to deal with all the idiosyncrasies that Apple has. They just want the traffic.
The bank has to put up with the Apple stuff.
Right, but a lot of those banks are partners of both, so they're like, we'll make it worth your while to have it be a Visa card instead of a MasterCard.
Yeah, and I think that, again, it may not have worked in the current structure, but another bank being able to start over again, looking at what the requirements are and looking at what the challenges are, they can now, talk to Apple and go,
the deal's going to be.
Well, not only do they know what the deal is, but they can restructure how they build their setup so that you're able to, when you're stuck in it, once the train is left and the wheels are going, it's very hard to change where the tracks are. But you can say, okay, I'm going to build a different style of tracks and make it more efficient so that when it comes in, we can still do what Apple wants to do, or they'll tell Apple that they can't. But I have a feeling what Apple's going to keep holding out for, because they've got their current partner on the hook for a while. So they have time to think about it and work through it. But I think what Apple's going to want is someone to restructure how they do what they do so that they can still provide the services that Apple's expecting.
Right. And having a network that is motivated like Visa might be would be helpful as a part of that for sure. I have one of my cards is a Chase Visa, and so I could see that this may be a dovetail of those two stories, right? Where there's going to be it's going to become a Chase Visa instead of being Goldman Mastercard.
Mastercard's not giving up easily; they're fighting, and Amex wants to get in there too. So everybody wants the Apple business. That's
except Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, except Goldman.
No, they accept that.
And again, we have to remember that this was Goldman Sachs getting themselves into a retail business that they didn't know. So when you say that they kind of didn't know what they were doing, but they're the only ones willing to put up with it because they didn't know what they were doing. And now what they've proven is they don't know what they're doing. And that the other companies are able, with a lot more infrastructure and a lot more experience, if they say they can do it, they understand how deep that water is. And they have a much better infrastructure to probably support it.
They did the same thing. Actually, Visa did the same thing to MasterCard at Costco, and came after Costco with a big. And you can't use your MasterCard at Costco, which is weird. There aren't a lot of retailers I've been to where you
have almost no MasterCards. Like it's interesting. I just thought of that. I was like, I don't know if I have any MasterCard.
Well, you have an Apple Card.
If I have a Visa, I don't have an Apple Card.
What?
My wife has an Apple Card. I don't have an Apple Card.
Well, I do. It's beautiful. It's made out of metal.
Yeah, it's the only
I use my Apple Pay all the time, and so if I'm somewhere where they don't take Apple Pay but they take a credit card, it works fine too. So
right, and that's for me that's the number one reason to get an Apple Card, still only available in the United States, by the way, is they give you big discounts, extra discounts on purchases made via Apple Pay. So like you've got an incentive to use it as the default when you do tap to pay out in the world, because you get, I forget what is 4% off instead of 3 or 3 instead of 2, something like that. Between that and that you get discounts on everything you buy from Apple, it can be worth it for somebody who's spending a lot of money on Apple stuff.
I got $6.96 this week in Apple Cash.
Yeah, they keep feeding that cash to you.
It adds up. I actually paid for the iPad for my daughter with Apple Cash. The little leftover crumbs. macOS 26 Tahoe Beta 5 is out.
For developers.
All the Beta 5s are out.
Beta 5 for everything.
Yes.
Is the public beta updated?
No, this is developer beta. Yeah. So presumably this will then lead to a public beta.
Okay. I haven't found any. By the way, I even moved my iPhone finally. I gave up. And it's been very reliable all around in every respect. One of the things that's happening in the new beta on Tahoe is the hard drive no longer looks like a spinning hard drive. They've replaced that icon. Nice job, 9to5Mac. They've put it into a translucent trash can, and the new icon. It's kind of like an SSD. It's a little more generic.
Yeah,
I wish they should have put like the compact fluorescent light bulb and the incandescent light bulb in there too. It's amazing how
this stuff lives on. This skeuomorphic crap lives on.
Well, they did do that, right, with energy saver setting.
It's not a light bulb anymore?
Originally a light bulb, then it was a compact fluorescent, and now it's an LED. Yeah.
Huh? Wow, you're paying attention.
Yeah, I wrote a whole article about that back at Macworld when they went to the compact fluorescent light bulb instead, but they've since even changed it further because time marches on. This is a little like the floppy disk icon for Save, right? It's sort of like a metal a metal hard drive that you would put in a Mac Pro, basically, at this point, is probably not the best image to represent a mounted disk, which will probably be something you would attach, via USB.
It's probably an SSD, although you can't.
Yeah, it is an SSD.
Tell. Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly.
Why would they update that and have it not be an SSD?
Japan has mandated that Apple must allow third-party app stores and payment systems, so the dominoes continue to fall. I imagine this is just going to be this way globally in a year or two, right?
And we should have to see how many people actually use it, so that they can give it to them. And then the question is, Google's had other stores for a long time, and
right.
Yeah, but it goes beyond that. This is this week they released a draft edition of the guidance on what Apple and Google are going to have to do for a law that I think goes into effect in December. And so it is like alternative app stores, but it's also third-party developers need to have access to biometrics if they want to use the hardware on the phone. If Apple is harvesting data from its users to improve its own products internally, then they have to be able to share that data with developers as well. It's 130 pages long. I downloaded it, but I haven't read it yet. But the impression I get is not that that developers should be able to see everything that Apple sees, but if Apple uses certain data and metrics as developers who are building a chat app, developers who are building a mail app, developers who are building a browser, then they can't use that as a unique advantage over third-party apps that do that sort of thing. It's a long, long list of things, and it's going to be a mess. I mean, you at this point, you kind of imagine that they're going to have to they're going to have to basically re-engineer their entire workflow and their entire structure for building operating systems and building these features to make sure that they can cut out a version that complies with each regulatory set of limitations that are in each part of the country, the world in which they operate. A lot of these things are the same, but they're certainly not going to want to just simply make a blanket change to the worldwide edition of iOS or the worldwide edition of the App Store. They're still going to want to make sure that in each market, they only have to do the bare minimum of what they are being ordered to do. And so I'm fascinated by what how this affects their ability to continue to develop and update and manage all these different products internationally.
And it just may mean that releasing of the OS takes longer. I mean, what the result may be is that if you're in the US, you get it you get the release at a certain date, and then the dates in other countries are 6 months behind or whatever, as they kind of work through whatever those things are, and then they'll just tell people that that's why it's taking so long.
Yeah, no, it's probably going to be 2 or 3. I imagine there's going to be a couple of different tiers. One tier being, okay, this is actually something that we can just basically roll into the main OS. That's not a big problem. There's going to be stuff where, okay, we will roll a special version of this for the specific market because we're definitely not going to extend that to the world. And then on certain very spicy situations, it will be, okay, guess what? You don't get cut, copy, and paste in Thailand. Oh well, we don't want to comply with this law. We think it's stupid, so you can't cut, copy, and paste on iOS anymore. Complain to your local government about it.
Didn't they throw some shade? I don't remember if it was in the analyst call or it was in the all hands meeting about how these countries were compromising Apple's product quality and security with these kinds of orders. I can't remember where I saw them.
And that might have been in their first official response to the DOJ's antitrust suit.
Oh, well, that too, yeah.
They finally exhausted their last attempt to get this dismissed, so they issued a formal response to the DOJ, and it was basically the entire playbook that you would have imagined. Yeah. That this is overreach, this is unnecessary, this is again, and it's stifling us. We have some of the most contented and loyal users and customers in the entire industry. It's not because we abuse them or abuse the market. So
right, it's anti-competitive. All right. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out.
I mean, it all depends on the judges. It depends on how it goes. I mean, a lot of what you can't go into a court case going, well, sure, they're right.
Right. Oh, no.
So all of these are making the points that you're going to make. You have to make those points before, but usually you can't bring up new points unless there's new evidence in the appeals. You're not even playing for, I mean, Apple in this case is not even playing for the first ruling. They're playing against, the Supreme Court hasn't ruled anything. They've just chosen not to look at some cases. And every time this goes up, the Supreme Court may decide, oh, well, this is the one we'd like to take on. And so, and if they, the DOJ is using, some creative licensing on like how, okay, we're going to go by profit, not by, because Apple clearly doesn't have a monopoly on phones, right? They have 57% of the United States market, less than 20% of the world market. They're not, they're not a traditional monopolist. And so they made something else up. But when you start making stuff up, you're kind of building your house on sand. And so at any point in time, if you make something up, you get the wrong judge. Like if you're standing on bedrock, you don't care what judge it is. You don't care how it goes through. But if you build your house on sand, you got to get the right judge. You got to get the right appeal, and you got to make sure that the Supreme Court is in the right mood to win that. And I think that's the like that. No, and it's all
I get you.
Grew up watching it. It's they're the DOJ. I mean, people are winning this, but the DOJ is still it's a creative way of looking at monopolies. And so if you get creative about looking at things, then you have to get everything right. And so Apple's just poking holes at a relatively weak case that they still could lose. So,
yeah, there are parts of it that I are where the DOJ is playing the classic hits, and I always enjoy the Hey Jude of the DOJ antitrust stuff. I love, and I'll chant along with and do the na. But there is some stupid stuff about you're stifling the creation of super apps. Like, what is a super app? Oh, well, we defined it thusly.
Yeah, I mean,
this
they're
thing
making
that
up
we
a lot
defined
of
is something that you're not allowing to happen in the app marketplace. Like, okay.
Yeah, we defined a straw man and then we burned it down. And so that's any case that goes to court, you can lose, or win. And so I think that Apple has probably they both have lots of money. Apple probably has better lawyers than what's in the DOJ, especially currently. Yeah. And so it puts the DOJ at a little bit of a disadvantage, but their track record a lot of other people's track record has been good. So it looks like they might have a good chance of that, but it'll still take years to work its way through the system. And the more Apple puts up what they're doing, the longer it will take.
I didn't mention that Tim also said that the Tahoe beta is the most popular developer beta in Apple's history. I don't know I don't know what that even means, but
I think people are more and more used to downloading the beta. I think it's just that more people have said, okay, I'm willing to take on a beta. They get used to it. They get used to the automatic, I think people have gotten more comfortable with public betas.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is an interesting data point. Like I was saying before, I thought it was interesting that he spent so much time talking about the new iOS, again, as though that was going to be like a major revenue driver, a signature moment for Apple, as opposed to a very, very ambitious update. But that does show that there are people who are responding so well to the pitch that was made at WWDC that they're like, even people that are not necessarily people who would sign up for a public beta are like, I want my iPad to do this right now. I don't want to wait for it, so I'm going to download it. That augurs very, very well for the platform that's going to exist in September.
Yeah. Interesting story about a man using an iPad, controlling it with his mind. This is from a company called Synchron. It's a embedded chip. Man has ALS. He's using his iPad without touching it, without eye tracking, without voice. He's just thinking. It's a fascinating movie. Yeah. You can watch here, and it's because Apple built in the switch control feature, which is fantastic. So it's interfacing to the switch control. The iPad even sends back screen context to the BCI decoder to make everything run more smoothly and accurately. It's pretty wild. I recommend the video.
Yeah.
From Synchron, Synchron.
Yeah, this is why like Apple's investment in accessibility has just been above and beyond what any other company has really even considered to be feasible, let alone like what they've actually done. And this is because 15 years ago they decided that accessibility is a right, not a nice thing to do, not charity. Was the saying? I forget the saying, but there's a saying that goes along those lines that like we do this because we need to have this work with everybody who wants to use it, not because we'll find these edge cases in which we can actually make this thing work with this other device. So it's a philosophy. It's a corporate culture, and we're seeing exactly what's possible when a company's on board to that degree.
Synchron's brain-computer interface, its BCI chip, actually doesn't have to be surgically implanted. It's implanted through the blood vessels. And they say this is an existing system that we are planning to roll out soon. They're planning wider access. So very interesting. Apple supports the interface across iPad, iPhone, and even Vision Pro. Well done. It's a nice partnership.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a very big deal.
Especially because it doesn't involve like actual implant into the brain. Because there's been a lot of really good progress being made on these kind of neural implants, but the problem is at some point at some point these wires have to come out. How do you what is the long-term viability of this device? How much maintenance is it going to use? So it's a very, very exciting. As a non-expert in accessibility health, this synchron technology looks really, really nice.
Apple TV Plus has introduced a podcast, an Apple original called Unicorn Girl. Meet Candace. She's a mother of two, a nurse and CEO, and founder of multiple million-dollar companies. How about that, huh? Candace is the kind of person who seems like she can have everything she ever wanted. She can save the world and look good doing it. Okay, fine. But I guess there's probably a secret in her life, huh? So there's, I guess, is it audio? Is it, I guess, or is it video? I don't know. Well, seems like it might be audio. Yeah, it's audio only.
That does sound like the first 3 sentences of a Lifetime Christmas movie pitch.
Feels a little bit like that.
But then her perfect life gets all twisted around when her little sister arrives from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I can't tell if it's a true story or a fiction. It's from the creator of Scamanda, an award-winning journalist Charlie Webster investigates Candace's rise and fall, which sounds like it's real, but it doesn't. I don't know.
Does anybody get murdered? I understand that in podcasts of the scale, someone gets murdered.
Very helpful if somebody can get murdered, I believe. That is a big part of it. There will be a new Apple TV this year? Yes? No? We don't know. But the rumors are strong. In fact, I saw one blogger say, this could make Apple be more important to gaming than PlayStation or Xbox put together.
It is like I said a month ago. It's a hell of a gaming console. If you just consider it that way, even if like you already have like you have a streaming box that can automatically transcode upscale things from HD to 4K, a million different features. Having this as a $100 game console is not a stupid thing. Especially with a subscription to Apple Arcade, it's something you can leave in the living room, and your kids are not going to get into too much trouble with it.
I think that Apple still needs to, I don't know, whether it's Apple Arcade or something else, fund something that really pushes the envelope of what the devices can do. Like a lot of the games in Apple Arcade are they're fun, but they're not like pushing anything graphically that is difficult. And I think Apple has the opportunity to prove that they can do those kinds of things and even drive hardware sales. I mean, the iPad, that could be great. A Mac Mini, an M4 Mac Mini could be a really great gaming device.
Well, would be the interesting thing. What if you put an M1 or M2 in an Apple TV? I mean, right now it's got an A15 Bionic.
Yeah, usually
3 years old.
Yeah, usually it's whenever they release it, it's a version or two older of what the phone had, or
something they got a lot of extra parts,
or ones that aren't quite as fast as they need for the devices. You take ones that are on the outside of the wafer no one's going to notice it in Apple TV because it's so overpowered compared to what every other set-top box. It's not. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 times more powerful than the next one over.
Which is why it's like, and for people who just want a streaming box, it's 2 or 3 times needlessly expensive. I keep coming back to.
I don't think the chip affects the price very much.
Cool, but okay. Well, at least it's still like more expensive than like the $20 or $30 streaming tabs that. Again, for people who just need to get Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, and a couple other things, it's as long as they have enough storage space, people are going to be happy with that. But the reason why I keep coming back to Apple Arcade is that whatever chip they put into the model that comes out this year, and this, by the way, this story comes from a source that spoke to Mac Rumors about it, that they're saying, Apple's still on track to release a new Apple TV. Whatever chip they put into a 2025 Apple TV is going to be powerful enough to run AAA games for sure. But my question is that are the people who want to run a AAA game, are they going to be thinking, I don't want to have an Xbox. I don't want to have a PlayStation. I want to have an Apple TV box. So, I mean, Apple's working very, very hard to make sure that to accommodate game developers, to make sure they can put their apps on Mac. But I don't know if the market is interested in a streaming box for that platform. If it can run Steam, that's great, and that's pretty much all they want to do. But again, it's hard for me to figure out the appeal of that. I would more be interested if and when this thing comes out. I want to hear like your teardown, Alex, because it seems to me as though the big opportunity is not necessarily games, but as a host organism for Apple TV Plus, that whatever features they want to put into their streaming service, be it quality, be it HDR, be it speed, or be it just, hey, there are things we can have multiple points of view, multiple camera angles, multiple feeds of information that you can only get when something is streaming through Apple TV Plus on an Apple TV.
I feel like Apple could, again, I feel like they could change the game a little bit if they started to support 120 frames per second at 4K. They technically, the newest Apple TV can do that. It just doesn't do it. Like it doesn't give you the tool to get to it, but the HDMI out and the horsepower built into it are absolutely capable of going 120 frames per second at 4K. And why would you do that? Because I have my phone and tons of other things that can capture 120 frames per second. And so the thing that Apple could do, I don't think they're going to, but, and I think this has more to do with culturally. I think there's a lot of people that make content for Apple that are really, attached to legacy formats like 2398. So they're really attached. They don't see why you would want to do that. But and the problem that they have is that if people started shooting 120 frames per second with their phone, and they started putting it on there and watching it on their as someone who works with 120 frame a lot, if you start watching it 24, you start seeing the frames. Like like 24, it's like it becomes flickery. It feels very flickery when you get used to 120 frames per second. And so people start taking their home movies that they could shoot with their phone and just sharing it over to the Apple TV and seeing 120 frames per second. It looks like a window. It is really compelling. And they're going to start being, but Apple then would have this whole opportunity to, you'd see all this production with the phone and everything else.
Can't the existing Apple TV do that?
No, it won't let you. It can. So hardware-wise, yes, it can. Software-wise, no, you don't. It doesn't give you anything higher than 60.
And there are a lot of TVs out now that can do 120 or even 240.
Almost every TV you buy can do up to 240 frames a second. I mean, the cheaper ones maybe only 120. Computer monitors are all over the place, but when you buy a TV, remember it's got all that extra stuff where it turns your 24 into 120. The smooth motion or whatever that they call it.
Interpolation. Yeah.
Interpolate, what people hate, and for good reason. I mean, it's just making things up. At that
it's
point,
ugly.
So it's ugly.
Yeah.
But there's a difference. When people make a mistake of is there's a difference between converting 2398 or 24 frames a second to 120 and actually shooting 120. And it's
now,
really impressive.
Even a DVD, even the UHD DVD players, I don't think can do 120.
No. Well, anything that's got I think it's HDMI It's either 2.2 or 2.4.
What sources are there? Are there any?
No, there's very few sources.
So Apple really could own this market.
Well, if they had if they did use their phone now can easily does 120 frames a second.
Yeah.
And so now you could be pushing this whole market towards pushing the rest of the market in a place that Apple can do almost automatically and nobody else can. And that's Apple's specialty is the
you'd have to put the HDMI 2.4 cable in the box.
You'd have.
I think most people's cables are probably.
But you could tell them what that is. I mean, you could tell them what to go get, and their TV, if that was bought in the last 5 years, will do it. Their Apple TV already can do it. If they release a new one, definitely. And then their phones over the last 5 or 6 years have been able to capture that. And so Apple has a lot of stuff that's already built in. Like for instance, the Mac Mini. I connect Mac Minis to projectors and the Mac Mini's doing 120 frames a second. It looks amazing. So it is. So that's the kind of stuff that Apple could theoretically do that forces the market to play a game that only they can win. And that it seems like it's such a really. And then what it would do is then drive other companies because these cameras can capture 120 frames a second. So you can capture on a Blackmagic camera and some of the other cameras. Blackmagic, you can turn it up to 120 at 4K, even at 8K. And so you can turn that up right now in a lot of the larger Blackmagic cameras to go ahead and capture 120 frames a second. So the industry would then have to respond to, or would have the opportunity to respond, and the only platform that would support it would be Apple TV Plus. So anyway, I think that it's very unlikely Apple will do that, but that's what they could do. It would put, and again, if you started watching lots of shows at 120 frames per second, or more importantly, MLS. So if MLS was running at 120 frames a second all the time, your other sports channels would look really bad. Like it's one thing to talk about film being 23.98, but sports channels, live sports loves frames, frame rate. I mean, a lot of sports channels do 720 because they want 60 frames a second, in the same transport window. And so, being able to do 4K 120 of MLS or F1 or other things like that would be incredible.
You'd need HDMI 2.1 to do the 4K 120.
Yeah.
Although there is a newer standard now. 2.2 came out earlier this year. It has 96 gigabit.
Yeah. I think it's 8K 120.
Yeah.
96 gigabit, I think is 8K 120.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will, I don't even need it. And I'm just such an Apple TV fan that I would just buy it anyway if they do come out later this year, sometime in between September and the end of the year, probably not at the iPhone.
The best thing I think I talked about a couple of weeks ago, the best thing is with old Apple TVs, you throw them in your suitcase. And then you just get to the wherever you're going, and now even if you're just sharing to it, you just take over whatever TV you run into.
Just paint it yellow so you don't leave it behind.
The Pico
little black box the size of a hockey puck. Yeah, that's gonna be overlooked.
Exactly.
The Pico Mac Nano, which I think you talked about last week.
Andy recommended it, and we all bought one.
You're lucky because they're not selling pre-assembled ones anymore. I thought I saw that behind you there. It was actually displaying it.
I thought it was just really, 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 really far away in the back.
Yeah, this is it's like a 2-inch high Mac with a 1-inch diagonal screen. It's got
perfect
an SD. You can boot things. It's a original Mac.
So what are you running on it? Because it looked like you had a Mac.
I had like MacWrite open, but you can take any disk image and you put it on an SD card and it'll boot off of that instead.
Nice.
So I've got to experiment a little more and get a better disk image with it. My frustration with it is the disk image that comes on it has Mac Paint, but when you try to launch it, it says it needs more memory, which isn't how that's supposed to work. Anyway, but the point is, it's this super cool tiny thing where the guy who developed this, Nick Gillard, he built his own circuit board in order to get it to fit inside this little tiny enclosure that's running, an emulator. It really just like amazing kind of work that he did. But Apple contacted him and said, especially your replica of our box, you're using all of our kind of stuff.
It's a little bit obvious.
I think he said, look, they were very nice. And they just said don't sell the pre-assembled ones.
So you can still get all the parts.
At his website, which is onebitrainbow.com, you can still get all the parts and make it yourself, assemble it yourself, and have fun with it. It is, I mean, it's the original Mac, so its ability to run software is limited. There's a lot of stuff that worked on the later Macs that won't run on this thing because it is meant to be that original Mac. But I just love the idea of it. And it really, it works. I literally have to take my glasses off and hold it right next to my face in order to see what's going on because it's a 1-inch diagonal screen.
So cute.
But I was able to plug in a mouse because the way it works is that there's just USB on the back, but it comes with an adapter, or I guess if you're buying the parts, you'd buy the adapter that's power and a USB port. And then I plugged in a USB mouse to it. And you can click around, and I mean, like it's real. It's like something that looks like you're looking into a kaleidoscope or something, or a ViewMaster, and it's a perfect model. Except it works. It runs software. It doesn't do sound. I mean, there's lots of limitations to it, but the fact that he was able to get the hardware and fit it into this little 3D printed original Mac case that's 2 inches high, and that like the screen turns on and you can move a mouse around. What a great idea. So thank you, Andy, for suggesting it, especially since we got in right under the wire when now you have to assemble it yourself.
No, I'm sad. I'm gonna have to buy the parts myself. And how many of us think highly enough of Apple to think that an email message went out on campus saying, okay, now we're going to tell them to stop taking pre-orders and stop selling it in 3 days time. So if you want one of these, make sure you put in your order right now.
Did they?
I don't know that. I'm guessing. No, I'm guessing that there's some of these all over the Apple campus.
Yeah. Probably they were very generous with them and gave him a warning. And basically, he had 3 days to take off the pre-orders. And he sent out a message saying, "I'm going to have to take the pre-orders down 3 days, so you might want to order it now."
Yeah, because everybody who did order before then will get one.
Yeah, he'll get one. You'll get one, and you can still order the parts. And they didn't say take that down. You must not. They really just were the idea of productizing this completely. I think that ticked over a little legal line for them. But the one that I got here, so not only is it a replica of the original Mac box, but it's literally, for people watching on the video version, it's literally a replica of the whole thing, including the top insert and what's in the box, and the Mac is in the box, and the little container containing the documentation is in the box.
And
that's where the adapter went.
It's like, oh my
and in
God.
fact, he even includes a little hex tool, and he made this because the original Macs could be taken apart with a hex tool. So he has it where you can heat set in these little tiny hex screws in the same place and take the two pieces of the enclosure apart using the same technique. I mean, breathtaking. And the fact, again, a mostly functional 2-inch high original Mac. What an amazing thing. So you could still make this a little handy project if you want to have fun just by ordering the parts from One Bit Rainbow.
I have to pull my nerd card. It's not a hex screw. It was a T15 Torx.
Oh, you're right. Torx. It was a Torx. Well, this one is like an IKEA hex screw, but it's the thought that counts.
It's the thought that counts. I just love that it's I've seen a lot of, hey, look, we made a tiny little Mac. And it's great. You love to see that kind of initiative and creativity, but something's off about it, or they say, oh, we can only buy this kind of a panel from AliExpress, so we made it adapt to this. This is again, you would not. It looks like a classic Mac that is far, far away, but it is in front of you on your desktop.
A Finder. It's open to the Finder right there.
Yes.
So David Pogue said, you may be wondering what happened to me for the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, he's been doing his Sunday morning CBS stuff.
He has the best job.
He makes
up whatever he wants and puts it on CBS Sunday morning.
Yeah, and has 8 Emmys to show for it.
Yeah.
He has a new book that will be out for Apple's 50th anniversary. It's called Apple, the First 50 Years. $50 for the hardcover version. You have to pre-order because it won't be out till next year, March of next year. But it is available now for a pre-order. And it is big. It's hefty.
Like a coffee table book. 600 pages, 300 plus color photos. And
interviews,
he says that he got
new interviews that he did with Woz and others. Yeah.
So not just a rehash. David was always, I was one of David's many editors at Macworld because he was a Macworld columnist before he was a New York Times columnist. So what people, he's great at this because not only is he good at interviewing and good at talking to people, but I have a hard time thinking of somebody more qualified to write a high level overview. He has the Apple cred from Macworld. He has the tech journalism cred from the New York Times, and all of David's pieces, even when he was writing about super nerdy topics, like he wrote a whole feature for me about the Palm Pilot, right? Like for Macworld, he is always thinking about it on a very high level of like regular people. We talk about Steve Jobs being concerned about like regular people using stuff. David Pogue is a lot like that. This is going to be readable and accessible to a large audience, which is why I think his publisher is probably really happy that he put this together, and that it's going to have a lot of pictures, color pictures on top of it. Like, this is not going to be a dense, nerdy book about Apple history. This is going to be, I would imagine, a really fun romp illustrated through Apple history, which for the 50th anniversary, which is coming up next year.
That's April 1st, right?
Beautiful.
2026.
And his point of view is amazing. Like, he was one of the people who had, I don't want to call it the blessing, I don't know if I'd call it a curse, but definitely not a blessing, of getting phone calls from Steve Jobs at 2 a.m. taking you to task about something you said or something you wrote, or about, it's like, okay, that's a hard thing to go to voicemail. So I'm really excited. But I am in the book because he called me a few weeks ago to fact check something. So
nice.
I'm trying to convert that into a free copy. But if I don't get a free copy, I'm definitely buying one.
Yeah, and he's so good at taking a bunch of complex stuff and a whole bunch of stuff and just isolating it down to the stuff that matters.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you don't see, he's really fun. He does really great segments on CBS Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
All of them are available on YouTube. Just search David Pogue CBS Sunday Morning, and you'll see them all. And so you don't have to find the time to go watch it. They're all on. They cut them all up and put them on YouTube. And he always finds great topics and digs into them and makes them interesting.
Apple First 50, Apple FIRST50.com, and it's available for pre-order pretty much everywhere right now. Simon & Schuster will be publishing it, and it's a big, thick 600-page book with 150 new interviews. So he really put, he could have done, just historic stuff, but he put a lot of work into this.
Yeah,
it's great.
And I think only somebody like David at this point, given that especially that Walt Mossberg is retired, there are very few journalists who would even be able to attempt to get this level of. I was going to say, I mean, let's be honest. Have I thought about writing a book about Apple with lots of pictures in it? I have, but I'm not sure I could crack the level of people to make it worthwhile. David Pogue has a name that opens doors. I think he's the perfect choice for this.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to it.
We love David. I edited his column on the back page and all the features that he did for a little while before he left us for the New York Times. And he's always great to work with. And we went on a bunch of those Mac cruises together. Yeah. Leo, you went on some of those with us too. Yeah, David, great guy. A lot of fun. That's going to be this is, I guarantee it will be a fun book to read because David doesn't write not fun.
Yeah. Great writer, very talented, nice guy. And a hell of a piano player.
Well, he was Stephen Sondheim's personal tech guru for Stephen Sondheim. It was like when Stephen Sondheim had a problem with his Mac, he'd call David Pogue, and David would come over and help him out. It just the stories. And of course, there's that famous story about how high-level Apple people came over to his house with the original iPhone because he was one of the early reviewers, and they literally came to his house and had dinner and gave him the iPhone. He's got a bunch of good stories like that.
He's one of maybe 3 different tech journalists, although he's gone beyond that right now, that if he were just to write a memoir, I would buy the hell out of that memoir. He's got so many stories.
And used to be on our shows quite a bit, but got way too famous for that.
It's CBS now, baby.
Yeah. Let's take a little break, and when we come back, we will get your picks of the week. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy, Alex, and Jason. The show today literally brought to you by our content delivery network, CacheFly. For over 20 years, CacheFly has had the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. And we know about CacheFly because, maybe you've heard me say, Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com/twit. We actually, CacheFly saved our bacon maybe 15 years ago when we were desperately trying to figure out a way to get hundreds of thousands of people to download our shows without killing our servers. Matt Levine at CacheFly came over and said, hey, I can help you. And man, we've been using CacheFly ever since. We love their lag-free video, their hyper-fast downloads, their friction-free site interactions. The proof is in the petabytes. We literally deliver many petabytes a month via CacheFly. And I know because events stream smoothly to millions of concurrent users worldwide with less than 1 second latency. Online games start 70% faster, scale instantly, and play without lag. Software downloads flawlessly during releases, patches, and updates. HD video plays on demand with ultra-fast sub-second start on every device. And podcasts reach global audiences in record speed at any scale. Content delivery is a tough thing to do, but CacheFly's been in this business longer than almost anybody. They know how. They focus on bringing you the best performance. They deliver rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs. Plus, you can do something now with CacheFly we've been doing for years. Shield your site content in their cloud, which means you never have a cache miss, 100% cache hit ratio. Trust me, that's important. And with CacheFly's elite managed packages, you get the VIP treatment. CacheFly is like gaining an extension of your team when your entire business model depends, as ours does, on delivering massive amounts of content. You can't afford to go it alone. Trust me, I know. You can count on personalized help anytime from a tenured expert who gets it. Engineer to engineer 24/7. Right, Patrick? Right. Learn how you can get your first month free at cachefly.com/twit. 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 We thank him so much for supporting us for so long. And I was Matt Levine's guest, by the way, on his podcast, The Anycast. He did a great interview, which is now up on the Anycast podcast. In case you missed it, 20 years at the edge of tech with Leo Laporte. So thank you, Matt, for doing such a great interview. It was a lot of fun talking to him. And we go back a way or two. Cachefly.com/twit. Thank you, CacheFly. All right. Let's get some picks. I'm going to start because I was very pleased to see that the ad blocker that I've used forever on everything is finally now available for Safari. Now, it's not an easy thing to do because Safari has some real restrictions on ad blockers, much like Google's Chrome does. Raymond Gorhill, the guy who does ublock Origin, made an ublock Origin Lite for the new version of Chrome, and apparently I think that stimulated his production of the same thing for Safari. I'm running it on the iPad. It runs on the iPhone, runs on the Mac. It is hard to find because Apple's search sucks, but search for ublock Origin Lite, and you want the one by Raymond Hill. Accept no substitutes. This is a fantastic ad blocker that even lets you turn filters on and off and do all the things that traditional ad blockers do. All their filter lists are, not all of them, many of them are there, as are Easy List and Easy Privacy and Peter Lowe's ad and tracking server list, both of which are very helpful for turning off those annoyances like cookie blockers, cookie announcements. Free in all the app stores, just so as you know. And the Inako pick of the week.
We're talking about vintage Macs. How about vintage Lisa? This is a really, really cool project by a developer by the name of Andrew Yaros. It's called Lisa GUI. It's not necessarily an emulator of the Lisa. It is he's reproducing the entire Lisa graphic user interface and experience using just Java and basic web techniques. So you can go to lisagui.com and it will just simply, you get the boot sequence for the Lisa. It will warn you that it's not an emulator. So basically it's Apple can't really strike it down because he's not reusing Lisa's source code. You can either install it inside your browser as native code, or you can just click the try button and it will still run. You just can't save documents, but you get the full Lisa interface. And there is an actual working Lisa in Boston, in a computer store, repair shop / museum in Boston, for which I provided the Twiggy drives. It's they were my Twiggy drives I've had as an ornament in my office for 20 years, and he needed them to restore it to full condition.
Oh, this one's a lot faster than a Lisa.
Yeah, and it freaks you out because it's I want to close that window. Well, no, that's not a close box. It's a disk icon. You have to close a window. You have to go to the housekeeping menu, and then you have to go to file and select put away or set aside. The scroll bars
everything
don't necessarily do things. It looks like the Mac, but not anything works the way that you want it to. If you want a word process, you have to basically create a copy of a sheet of paper and then type on that sheet of paper. It is trippy as hell. I also like the fact that in the menu bar it says how many frames per second you're running at. I'm running at 60 frames per second. It's only in alpha. It's in alpha right now. So basically what you would think of as the Finder works fine. The puzzle and desk utilities work. The Lisa type paper works in a couple of demos, but he intends to do Lisa Calc, Lisa Draw, the entire thing. And again, it is such a trip for someone who is. I'm so sorry that people don't get to experience some of these old technologies the way they were actually run. Lisa emulation is very, very hard because the ROMs you need are hard to find. It's not as easy as emulating the Mac because of the lack of support. There's some projects where you can't just open a URL and 20 minutes later be actually using these apps. And this is a chance to actually go back to 1983 before at an easier time when this poor innocent Lisa did not know that it was about to be crushed by an arrow in the back shot by one of its own executives.
Very cool. Very cool. Lisa GUI. There you go. If you've never seen it, you'll be amazed.
It's got the shade of color in the screen, right? It's nice.
It is pretty amazing. Thank you, Andy. That is lisagui.com. Jason Snell, your pick of the week.
All right. First, before we do that, for the people watching on video, let's see if I can.
Oh, look at that. It's so little. It is a Mac.
So much fun.
You can actually see it's going on. And look, there's a cursor moving there.
Wow.
It's just kind of incredible that all those things are possible.
Did you park the heads of the drive before you picked up the machine?
Man, unfortunately, no. So I've crashed the hard drive.
Damn.
It's a crying shame.
We
were talking, as the show was getting started, we were talking about all the things you can do with a sous vide machine. It's been a few years since seemingly everybody recommended sous vide stuff on this show. So I thought I would mention, I recently had to replace my original. I actually ended up with another Innova precision cooker 3.0. I think it's Aces. I think it's really great. It's got Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or whatever. It doesn't matter.
I have the original, and I never used it.
Mine finally kind of died, and there are other ones that look cool, but they don't have. What you really want is the controls need to be on it. Some cookers are you just use our app. It's you know what?
No.
To set the temperature of a thing in my kitchen, opening an app is not the way. You can have an app, but to require an app, no go. It's not going to happen. So this thing, it's got a little touch screen on it. You can set it to be what you want. It's obviously its primary purpose is to cook stuff, right? The idea that you can take a steak and cook it to exactly medium rare, and then it will just reach it and sit there, and then so it's perfectly done every time. You can sear it on the outside. It's really easy to do. But I had two other tips. One of them was the one I gave to Leo a couple weeks ago, which is you can also just put cold water in a pot or in a plastic tub or whatever you want to use, and stuff that's frozen in a waterproof container like a Ziploc bag, and you circulate it at no temperature, at lowest temperature, And the active circulation is a speed thaw. So you can thaw frozen stuff way faster in a sous vide machine turned down all the way. And the latest thing is, a couple weeks ago, somebody asked me why there was no action in the lava lamp that is behind me. And in fact, it got in a weird state. And I agitated it a little bit, and there were little blobs everywhere. And I thought, what would be the solution here is to use the sous vide bath and put the little glass thing of the lava lamp in it to get everything so warm that all of the wax kind of like melts and then goes where it needs to go and returns it to its clear state here. A lesson that I learned from decrystallizing honey, which is another thing you can do in a sous vide.
Good for that too, yeah.
So like once you get this thing that circulates water and holds it at a given temperature, there is so much science you can do, and some of it even tastes good. So check it out.
It will ruin a lot of things for you, like chicken. And what I mean by that is you get used to cooking chicken at 145 degrees, because if you leave it in a sous vide, you don't have to go to 165. You can go to 145. In fact, you can go to about 137, but it gets red and people don't like it.
The temperature that we all have been trained for is the temperature at which instantaneously everything is killed. But you can go at a lower temperature if you hold it there for 15 minutes or half an hour, and then it's perfect and you can't overcook it.
The problem is you get used to 145, and no matter what you do to it at 165, you're like, this is like chewy. Not as good. It's just not as good. It's not as good.
For me.
So it's just I use it all the time for chicken. And then when you're entertaining people, and a lot of times I have 2 or 3 of these out, and because I've got chicken at one temperature and I've got steak at another temperature, and you get a couple tri-tips or ribeyes or whatever in there, and they're just sitting there waiting for people to show up, and you've got your grill up full tilt, and so you're just sitting there. When they get there, you put in your grill for a minute on each side at 900 degrees if you've got a big green egg, and you cut it off, and it's the best steak they've ever had.
Yeah, for me it was pork. Because like it's like when I was growing up, like you're used to, okay, this is just to cook it to a safe temperature renders it dry and leathery, and so I just did. But with the sous vide, it's like, it's actually kind of pink inside, but it's perfectly safe. It was like as tender as chicken. The other thing that the other thing that I'd like to evangelize about it is that once it's not like cooking in an oven where once it's done, you have to pull it out of the oven or else it'll overcook. Basically, once it's cooked, there's an amount of time after which, okay, great, the chicken is cooked, whatever it is, it's cooked, it's safe to eat. But then you get about a 2-hour window in which it will just simply hold, not cook anymore. The texture might change if you go 3 hours, but it will hold. And this is the reason why, for instance, like every time I've cooked Thanksgiving dinner, it's like, no, I'm doing the turkey. I'm an okay cook, but the biggest Achilles heel is if you have to serve dinner and all the turkey and all the sides have to be ready and done and tabled at the same time. How do you get all that stuff to synchronize? You don't have to. It's like, I just know that we're going to eat sometime around 1, and so if the turkey is ready at around 12, maybe a little after that, it doesn't matter. It will not be overdone. I can simply, okay, what time are the mashed potatoes done? What time are the green beans done? Great. Now I'll pull the turkey, sear it to give it that's the one thing it doesn't do. It doesn't give you that Maillard reaction.
I'm recommending a product called the Precision Cooker, but the precision is for the temperature. One of the things that it gives you doesn't require you to be precise with time. Right. It's very hard to screw this up. You can do it. Alex once went on a trip and left meat sous vide.
Not in the current one. Not in the current one.
But it's hard to do.
Makes a lot of noise, and you see it. Not a lot of noise, but it makes noise. I had an original one. This was a different product, sous vide supreme or something, and it didn't make any noise. And so if it was closed, then it wasn't clear. If it was closed, you just had no sense that it was on. And I used to take the little steaks at Safeway that were already pre-packaged, and they're packaged in burgundy or something like that, and throw them in for an hour and a half, and it's like a great steak coming right out. You don't do anything. You literally take the bag and just put it in. People tell you not to do it, but I used to do it all the time. Anyway, so but then I put one in, and then busy packing, and forgot and went to Europe. So came back and it's all liquid. Just in case you're wondering. But outside of that, it's very, very hard. You do have to get either resealable. I mean, you can do it with freezer quality Ziploc bags if you put it in slowly. But I have the other thing you get is a food saver, and you Ziploc, and you get pretty good at it. And the trick for me is rosemary. If you just take your chicken or steak and you get some flaky salt on both sides, you get I put a little tab of butter in there, and then I put a sprig of rosemary, which I have a bush of it outside. So I just go grab some and put them in. And the rosemary, for some reason, for the chicken especially, and for the steak, it takes it to another level pretty quickly, and you don't have to do there's no work.
Yeah. So buy one. Also, you can fix your lava lamp.
And you don't need to buy the bucket that it goes in. Really, you're just buying the stick that goes. It can go in any kind of Tupperware.
I have a clear plastic bucket now that I use because it has some advantages. But for the first 4 years that I did this, I just used one of our pots.
Use a pot.
It's fine.
They want $100 for their plastic.
Oh, don't get their bucket.
You don't need their. No, Amazon has ones that are the exact same shape that are way cheaper than that. Let me tell you.
They have great. Amazon has great ones that are built for this. If you just sous vide, and it'll be like $15, and then you get. There's a little sleeve that you can go on it that makes it more efficient because it doesn't evaporate. It doesn't let the heat out.
It's like a little lid with a cutout for the cooker.
There's a topper,
and then there's a thing you can flip up and put the meat in, and this is easy easy. It's an easy nerdy thing, and you can start out with nothing but the cooker and just use your pots 100%. And then grow from there.
And the Innovas start at like $30. They're like there's $300 ones, there's $80 ones, there's $65 ones. That it's like whether you have Wi-Fi and how precise it is and how powerful it is and how big it is.
This is the hinged lid. Collapsible $10.
Yeah, I got that one. I got that one.
That's all you need.
Yeah, the most important thing is you don't need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or anything like that.
I really don't. I just turn the dial up and do the thing.
I'm not going to get gravy all over my phone just because I need to turn off.
Amen.
Exactly.
Yeah. No thanks.
Amen.
Yeah. Very nice. We'll come back to our picks of the week in just a moment. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy, Alex, and Jason. I think it's your turn, Alex.
So I spent the weekend in Golden Gate Park, at the Polo Fields.
And, did you go see the Grateful Dead tribute?
Dead and Company, with John Mayer, and I was working there. Anyway,
were you streaming it?
Yeah. With IMAX had it in 30 theaters, and
cool.
So anyway, I was there all weekend, and I had to go out and So I've never been to a Dead show. I mean, the Dead have been around for 60 years. I've been around for 55 years, and I've avoided it until now. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Oh man!
I spent an hour in the middle of the. What they do is they do about a 75-minute. They did it 3 nights in a row. So and it's all different every time. And that's what I realized about the Dead.
Oh yeah, it was
is that no show is anywhere. Yeah. And no show is anything like. I was like, why do people keep on recording the show? I don't understand. And then you go to it and you're like, oh, I got it. And it
helps to be pharmaceutically enhanced as well.
Yeah, I probably should have done more of that. Yeah. So anyway, you
were working. You really could.
I was working. I could. But this is what the stage looked like. Really early on when people were coming in.
They were always big on the sound system.
It is out of control. So here now, this is also being used for outside lands, but you can see, I'm kind of in the middle area there. You can see kind of, let's see if I got there's some where they start turning the light stuff on, and then look at. I mean, this is at night, and
beautiful.
It's really insane. And then Mickey.
You think you'd have better seats though, Alex, given your fact.
So here's the funny thing about that. I talked to a bunch of people who go to these all the time. It turns out a lot of people go to all the Dead shows ever, and they said you can experience it in the VIP section and you can experience it in those tents. They said what you want to do is get as close to the front of house mixer as possible because that's who's mixing the show.
Yeah.
So they said get close to that and be in the middle, but not in the back, but in the middle. They these people do it all the time, especially when you talk to tech people who do it all the time. They were like, "This is where you stand."
Right.
And so where I am is right. I'm pretty close to as close as you can get comfortably to the front of house mixer. And it's a little further over, but not much. And anyway, but this was incredible. They had Mickey Hart does this thing where he plays all these drums, and I guess it used to go on forever. And I'm pretty sure it works better if you're on a lot of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, you really don't notice how long it's taking.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think. And all these
did he stop?
All these particles are coming. They have this program called Notch. and it's responding to his body.
Wow.
And so there's particle effects coming off of it, and he's using this big thing called the beam, which is like, it looks like a giant bass, that's flat, and he plays it like a bass, like with a big thing. It was. Here's all I got to say.
That was made for him at Lucas Sound.
It was made by Sean House.
Yeah.
I know Sean, and so Sean used to show everybody.
You showed me that thing.
Yeah. That's the beam. Yeah. So Sean House made the beam. He made about 6 or 7 of them for Mickey, and so Sean would show it to us, and he goes, "But you have to see it in the show. You have to see it in the show."
So is this your first time seeing it in action?
That's the first time I ever saw it in action, and
neat.
the first time I ever saw anything that was related to the dead. And I have to say, I was like, okay, I get it. I went from, I have no idea what this is about, to I would go to every show. I would go to every show, and man, do they make a lot of money on merch. That's all I got to say. They have that down pat. They have foil posters and all kinds of, and everyone feels like they have to buy everything. If you want to see any of the show, if you want to see the show from the last weekend, and I would recommend Saturday or Sunday. I don't know if they're sold differently or not. They're streamed all through nugs.net. And so Nugs is they kind of grew up with the dead. And so they stream a lot of things. It's a subscription. You can watch lots and lots of live shows. I think that what they started with is streaming lots of Fish and dead shows. The one you're looking for, though, is somewhere in the middle of the Saturday set, a guy named Sturgill Simpson comes out and does Morning Dew, and he crushed it. And I mean, I was just sitting there, I got chills listening to it. And I was like, it was just so good. And he, anyway, so I didn't get it before. Obviously I do get it now. And it was, I would highly recommend seeing them. But if you want to see concerts and you want to see that concert, I think you can buy it still on, and I think they did it in 4K from
nice.
From nugs.net.
And the sound is probably very, very good. They really focus.
It's incredible.
On sound quality.
The other thing is Myers, which is they're the ones that do the sound for the dead. They grew up. We consider them the highest. They're out of Berkeley, and we consider Myers Audio to be the highest quality audio you can get. And so we. What I didn't know is that they built that system, the original systems for the Grateful Dead, because it was so important to have great audio. The audio and the lighting and the show itself, and a lot of it has been pared down for the stage from the Sphere, because they were doing something in the Sphere, and so it was also the parts of the Sphere kit, which are these $250,000 camera systems on the front of the stage, which is part of what makes it. If you look at it, you'll go, "How are they getting that shot?" It's a riser. It's this camera riser that has what's called a Trinity rig on the top of it. And that Trinity rig by itself is $200,000. That's what my brother has. And so it's a very expensive, it's usually used on a Steadicam, and it's on these risers, and it's a incredible setup. It was probably one of the best shows I've seen in, a decade.
So
it's really, really good.
There.
So I was glad Saturday was a little off, not completely off. And so I was able to go out for about an hour and a half and get the best part of the show. So it was good.
It's good music.
Yep.
Nugs, is it nugs.com?
Nugs.net.
.net.
Yeah.
Nice. You can watch it live.
And lots of other shows too.
Yeah.
Is it too much to ask that whoever has nugs.com is like a really, really uptight financial services company? Like really the man
is it really?
times 10? No, I'm saying I
that'd be funny. That'd be funny.
Let me just check.
Yeah, now
it's a premium domain available for purchase.
And they're probably asking nugs.net for like $100,000 or $50,000.
I just want it to be like a ultra conservative think tank or something.
I like it that if I bought nugs.com, it would establish instant trust and credibility with my customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
if you're smelling, what you should do is do nugs.com and sell weed. Like that's
of course, it's obvious what it stands for. Yes.
So that
instant
would be
credibility with my customers.
All the people going to nugs.net would accidentally go to you.
Yeah, well, that's right.
You'd be set.
You'll sell the merch.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the, I'm sad to say, Vision Pro-less version of the best Vision Pro podcast.
We'll get there.
In the world.
Next time.
We'll have more talk.
I looked for some stories and I couldn't.
Can't have Vision Pro segment every week. That gives them what they want. You got to leave them wanting more.
I'm sorry. You are watching, though, the best darn Mac podcast and the Apple podcast in the world. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 1800 UTC. You can watch us live in a variety of places. Now, if you're in the club, that's the behind the velvet rope access. You can watch us in the Club Twit Discord. Otherwise, the unwashed... let's do a plug for Club Twit. Why not? $10 a month, ad-free versions of all the shows, access to the Club Twit Discord, which is a great hang. In fact, we've got some fun stuff coming up. Stacy's Book Club is Friday. A wonderful sci-fi book. Jason, again, you're invited. I know you really like This Is How You Win the Time War.
Good one.
Really good book. We'll also be doing Chris Marquardt's photo segment immediately after. So we do a lot of content in the club only, including all of the keynotes and so forth are now in the club only. So that's another reason to join the club. But mostly you do it because you want to support the content we make here at Twit. 25% of our operating costs are supported by club members. Without you, we'd have to cut back. I don't know what we'd do. So thank you to our club members. I'd love to have you in the club too. twit.tv/clubtwit. Consider it. There's a 2-week free trial. There are, in fact, family plans and corporate plans as well. There's an annual plan too, which doesn't save you any money, but at least you don't get those monthly pings. twit.tv/clubtwit. Thanks in advance. For that, if you're not in the club, you can watch on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, and Kick.com. And I think I must have left something out. But anyway, Twitch, did I mention Twitch? Twitch.tv as well, which means you can get the freshest version the day we record, but you don't have to because we do record it. It's a miracle of modern technology, and you can watch it after the fact. We put a copy up on our website, of course, twit.tv/mbw. There's a link there to the YouTube channel. Now, that's a good thing to know about if you want to share clips of any part of the show with friends and family. Do that, please, because it helps us promote the show. It really helps us grow the show. Also, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client and get it automatically. There's audio and video. We do both. And it's free to subscribe, of course, but there is a toll. If you would give us a nice review, that would make me very happy. Now, most podcast clients will let you do that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to Andy Anatko. Great to see you in the library. Thank you to Jason Snell, sixcolors.com. His podcast at sixcolors.com/Jason. And, of course, that kind of immediately after the quarterly results call YouTube videos also on the front page of his website, sixcolors.com. You can watch Dan Moore and Jason Snell
break those charts.
All down. Yeah, break down the charts, man. And, of course, Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. And if you want to do as Nugs did and hire the man, 090.media.
Nugs didn't hire me. Someone else did.
Oh, someone else hired you.
Yeah. But I worked with them. They're great. Great folks.
Yeah. Thank you, all three of you. Thanks to everybody who's watching. But now it is my sad and solemn duty to say, get back to work because break time is over. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. No matter how much spare time you have, twit.tv has the perfect tech news format for your schedule. Stay up to date with everything happening in tech and get tech news your way with twit.tv. Start your week with This Week in Tech for an in-depth, comprehensive dive into the top stories every week. And for a midweek boost, Tech News Weekly brings you concise, quick updates with the journalists breaking the news. Whether you need just the nuts and bolts or want the full analysis, stay informed with twit.tv's perfect pairing of tech news programs.